Hey everyone, welcome to the Current Case Podcast. We're a group of four friends discussing the latest current events as they apply to our everyday lives. From foreign policy to local events, we cover it all as best we can in a manner not restrained by the bias of the big media corporations. We may not always agree with each other on certain topics, but that is what makes it all the more interesting. Being able to sit down and have a civil conversation on even the most controversial topics is a necessity for a better society.
Hey everyone, welcome to Season 2, Episode 3 of the Current Case Podcast. Today we have our second special guest, Patrick.
Hey everyone, I'm Patrick. I'm happy to join you.
Yeah, so it's going to be a fun episode. We'll be talking about a lot of new stuff, and we'll kind of see how this goes.
Yeah, for sure. So, Patrick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? It's the first time we met, so...
Nice to meet y'all. I'm from Tampa, Florida, or I guess I live in Tampa now. I'm originally from the northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, which is how I originally met Matthew, who brought me here. And I work in property management, commercial real estate, graduated from Franciscan University in northeastern Ohio. Lived in South Jersey for a little while. I've been all over the place, so happy to be here today.
Yeah, so all the way Ohio to Florida. Must be a big climate difference. Wow, that's crazy.
I'm very grateful for it.
I feel like every Ohioan's dream is to move down to Florida. It's so nice.
I'm very fortunate to have family that supported me in this decision because I moved here alone.
Wow, that's awesome, though. How long have you been here?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. Wow. Okay. So, how does it compare to Ohio, would you say?
They're two completely different worlds. I think it's a lot easier to compare Florida to Jersey, only because Jersey is a lot closer to the coast. Two completely different worlds.
What's your favorite part down there, Patrick?
I live really close to downtown, so just the walkability of everything, and I have some quirky special dietary needs, being gluten-free, and I'm not fully dairy-free, but I generally try to avoid dairy, so the restaurants, really in any downtown setting, but especially here in Tampa, are much more accommodating to those needs. So the food scene I'm a huge fan of, just the walkability of everything, and I know it sounds weird, but I love swampland, so I love visiting some of the nearby state parks. They're really pretty in the most swampiest of ways.
Well, yeah, half of Florida is just the Everglades down there, so the swamps.
Yeah.
I love the swamp. I mean, my favorite football team is Jacksonville. So, Duval. I've never been to Jacksonville, though. But
of all the teams.
Yeah.
Funny.
All the teams. I just like their colors, so it'll be fun to watch them this weekend. So I'll technically choose Florida.
Yeah, he said he found them when he was 5 and liked the color of it. He's like, well, that's my team. And it's been his team ever since, and he's weirdly obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I have more of a theater background, not really a sports background, so that's the kind of decision I would have made as a kid is, I like their colors.
That's good, yeah. All right, so Patrick, what'd you say you do again? I didn't catch it the first time.
Property management and commercial real estate, so think corporate office buildings.
Wow. So how's it been down there, career-wise so far? Lots of opportunities?
So I've actually only been doing this for about a year and a half. When I first moved to Tampa 3.5 years ago, I started in hospitality as a front desk clerk, working overnight shifts actually. And then COVID kind of put an end to that. I was furloughed from my position at the Hilton. I got a temporary job at Target that I was only planning on being at for a couple months, but then that opportunity at Target then led into human resources, which I really enjoyed and wanted to do for a very long time. So I worked in human resources for Target for only about 1 year. And then I was like, all right, I think I'm done with this. That wasn't against human resources. It was more just how Target treats human resources. That's what my biggest issue was. It was such an entry-level position. I'm sure when you get higher up in the company, it becomes a lot more enjoyable. But for what I was doing at the entry level, it was very not fun. So thanks to some networking opportunities, I was able to work my way into commercial real estate property management with Cushman and Wakefield. about a year and a half ago. So I didn't start this position until way into the pandemic, so I haven't really seen how the pandemic has affected the industry a whole lot, other than there are a lot more people in our buildings now than there were when I first started. So I've just seen people slowly trickling in. I think the main building I'm at, I think we started at maybe like 40% occupancy when I first started a year and a half ago, whereas now we're up to about 65%. So ever so slowly, people are continuously trickling in. More and more people are getting back into the office and kind of getting away from their work from home schedules. But in the end, like the day-to-day operations of our jobs really haven't changed a whole lot to my knowledge. But again, I wasn't there for like the crazy peak pandemic. But even peak pandemic here in Florida was very different than it was for most of the rest of the country, since we never really closed for any more than a couple months.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I know everybody's flocking to Florida now. I think it was a very popular hotspot during the pandemic.
Yeah. Yep, and we have not lost that momentum yet.
Yeah, this time last year, I went with friends down to the Keys, and it was fantastic. And then 2 years ago, around this time, I think is when we first met down in Florida, and you came by and hung out with everyone.
In Miami, I am past due for a trip to Miami.
Dude, I still remember the time, like, I thought my leaving flight was out of Miami International, and we get there, and I walk inside, and I ask, like, one of the employees where the specific gate was. And he looks at my phone, he's like, dude, you're at the wrong airport. And keep in mind, my flight is, like, maybe an hour away. And so I run back, I text Patrick, like, yo, I'm at the wrong spot. And we book it up to where? Fort Lauderdale, I think.
Yeah. We had some complications getting out of downtown Miami because I was having a hard time picking Matthew up to go to the airport. So I was like circling the block, trying to pick him up to go to the airport. So we were running very behind schedule getting to the airport. And yeah, as he just said, we went to the wrong airport. Continue.
Yeah, so then I get to Fort Lauderdale International, and thankfully everyone around me was super nice, and they just let me like go straight to the front of the line. And I run through there, and I book it down to the like other side of the airport. And as I'm walking up to like the main gate area, they're calling like second to last boarding group. So I make my flight, but it's like, man, that was too close. And Patrick kind of came in clutch and saved the day on that one. So it's still appreciated, my guy.
Hey, my pleasure.
I swear every single vacation you told me about something went wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
Every single one.
Yeah.
There was that San Francisco trip where you got your car broken into.
Dude,
like
we
rental.
literally got there, landed, what airport was it? I think it was San Francisco International. But we get there, and the first thing we do is go to the rental car section. Tyler signs all of the paperwork and stuff for the rental car. We get in, and we're like, all right, we have to hit In-N-Out. It's like the first thing we do on this trip. So we drive over, we park in the parking lot. Before we even make it to the counter, we see someone drive up to our rental car, smash the rear window, take all of our luggage out of it, and then run off. And we're just like, dude, we haven't even been here 5 minutes, and all of our stuff just got stolen.
Wow.
Now, praise to God on this one, but I had the foresight to sit there and like, you know what? Something feels off about this place. I'm going to take my laptop and my backpack out of the trunk. I'm going to put my laptop underneath the front seat, and I'm just going to like stuff my backpack on the floor of the passenger seat. Lo and behold, like, at least I still had my computer and backpack because that's where all my expensive stuff was. But literally, not even 3 minutes later, everything else was just taken.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, if I can find the video, I might throw it up on the screen for you guys. But eventually, like the day before we leave, we get a call from the San Francisco Police Department. And they're like, hey, so we found some of your stuff that you had described that was stolen. It was like 3.5 blocks away on the side of the road in a ditch. Because I guess what they do is they just smash and grab. So they'll break into a car, grab all your stuff, and then rummage through it. So the clothes and stuff they'll just throw out. But if you have anything remotely decent, they'll take it and just dump the rest.
Yep. Watch that, especially in the big cities.
Mm-hmm.
going up to Columbus here, so I have to watch that, especially where I park and stuff.
Well, it's really bad out in California. Like, they'll have just groups of people, like gangs, and they'll circle the same block, or the same couple blocks, and they'll wait for you to park. And as soon as you get out of your car and, like, walk away, they'll hit it. It's insane.
Yeah. My boss actually, she had a rental car stolen, so her husband was having his car worked on and was driving a rental for like a week or whatever when his car was being worked on, and left the fob key in the car overnight and the doors unlocked.
Oh no.
Yep. And some punks went driving through the neighborhood, checking a bunch of door handles of cars in their neighborhood, and found theirs and drove off with it.
Lovely.
Had the rental car stolen, so they were able to locate it. To my knowledge, they still have not gotten it back, and this happened like 3 weeks ago. But they at least know where the car is. Her husband has since been blacklisted from Enterprise, who they rented the car from.
Oh shoot!
and insurance is taking care of the rest. But to my knowledge, I still don't think the car has actually been recovered. But they know where it is. They're just dealing with a bunch of legal stuff and whatever. I don't know. Very bizarre.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
It's like the best part about living in Ohio is like there's a little bit of crime, but nothing like this. Like
Exactly.
you can leave your keys in the door. No one's gonna mess with it.
Yeah.
Like you can leave your car unlocked, and 85% of the time you're fine.
Car theft is a huge problem in Florida, especially in Tampa and Miami. That's one thing that I learned very quickly after I moved here. Even like the most common ones at the gas station, people like leave their keys in the car at the gas station, go inside real quick, and their car's not there when they come back. That's the most common, but I mean it happens all over the state.
I know. Luckily, I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but hopefully it doesn't. I mean, I don't keep anything valuable in my car anyway, so unless they want some used gum, you can have that. But other than that, nah, we're good. All right, you guys got any questions for Patrick, or are we ready to start talking controversial current events?
Let's get the show
Let's
on
go.
the road.
Show on the road.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
take a glass of water real quick.
All right, the first headline for today, first big one, is that we hit our debt ceiling. Of course, that's kind of an arbitrary little ceiling, I think, that they put into place. But Janet Yellen, our secretary, she is concerned, our treasury, she's concerned that hey, we have reached our limit at this time. Essentially, what it does is states that, hey, our debt statutory limit is above $31.4 trillion. And that now we have to implement extraordinary measures so we don't default on the debt. And our limit is up to June 5th. So we got till summertime. So if we don't meet or lower that limit, we will default on our debt, which of course could spell lots of problems in our economy, interruptions, cause the stock market to essentially collapse.
Well, here's an idea.
Okay.
Just stop sending money to every other nation in the world. How about that? I mean, we don't need to be
Good start.
spending this much on foreign aid. Like, that's a big chunk of where our money's going. If we're going to spend this much, funnel it back into we the people. And another thing is, how do they ever expect to pay off our debt to ourselves and everyone else if we keep printing money? Like, it loses value at the rate at which it is printed. So why keep printing it like this? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Ashton, any thoughts there?
Really not sure how best to put this, but I definitely feel that the insider trading has got to stop. If someone's going to fix this, it's got to be the people who are basically the most responsible for this. Confiscate corrupt officials, property, and use that to basically pay off the debt.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. It kind of pushes us, and we have to raise it each time,
Right.
because of the severe negative impact it would have on the economy, right? So if we just say, you know what, we're not going to raise it, obviously it kind of starts with a government shutdown. But, if you let that go on for any extended length of time, it starts taking billions of dollars out of the economy because all those payments aren't being sent out. People who rely on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, government contractors, federal employees, those who defend our country, soldiers, they don't get paid.
Right.
What's going to happen in this issue if that occurs? And then secondly, the U.S. government's credit rating gets downgraded, which is never a good thing. It reduces the value of the dollar.
Yeah,
it also puts us in a really unstable position.
Yeah, I would also say it kind of makes things a lot more difficult to stay ahead of, say, China, who's looking to try and basically make the yuan the next global currency to replace the dollar. Still far away from that happening, I feel,
But the point everyone's missing is that, they raised the debt ceiling, I think, 72 or 78 times since the 1950s. Why can't you just raise it? Be like, okay, we need to do something now. We've hit it. And then start decreasing government spending versus, we'll just push it back. Oh, it's here again? Push it back. 70 some odd times later. Well, what do we do now?
you just kick the can down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, imagine what your credit score would be if you did what the government does. Like, it'd be in the dirt, below the dirt. Like,
My
imagine
credit
if
cards
you could
do
just,
today?
But imagine if you could just like push that back. You're like, sorry, Chase Bank, I'm going to pay that back later. I don't feel like doing
Give
it
me
right
another
now.
year.
Give me another line of credit here. What?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I spent all that $100,000. I need another $100,000. We're going to raise this to $4 million this year. Oh, $4 million. Yeah, I need a little bit more time. Let's raise it to 16. Yeah, I'm looking at needing about 20 more this year. And you just keep doing that. And it's like,
That would never fly. Why do we let the government get away with that? The government's supposed to be run by us. Like, what's the deal here?
You would think. But you know who really runs it.
the other kind of funny point you brought up, Cameron, is that, like, this is way off topic, by the way. You know how, like, you get gas somewhere and they charge your credit card and it's like, all right, we're putting a $150 hold on it while, you pay for it. You'll get it back in like 7 to 10 business days. It's like, imagine if we just did that to companies. Like, here's my credit card. Here's your Cameron. Here's your new Fortnite skin. We'll pay you in 7 to 10 business days. And then, but we want our product now. It's quite the double standard.
If I lived like a politician, my life would be so great if I could get away with everything they do. Just broken promises in my job. Hey, I'll do that later. I'll get it done. Don't worry. It'll be my promise.
Get around to it.
Credit card, as you said, credit card payment. I'll get around. Give me another year. I'll pay that back. I swear.
Wealthy Capital and all the insider trading notifications.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Whatever happened to government accountability?
Oh, that doesn't
Yeah,
exist,
I
Ashton.
don't think that ever existed, to be honest with you. Maybe in the very early days.
Patrick, what are you thinking?
I just did a real quick Google search because I actually remember the last time that we had a government shutdown. It was the weirdest thing because simple things that you don't really think necessarily take money to run still take money to run. Like state parks, national parks, probably more so national parks than state parks, but just random things like nature. You wouldn't think that it costs money to run nature, but they still need to staff those things. So that's one of the things that I remember very vividly from the last time that our government shut down because of debt ceiling issues, is parks being closed. So anyway, I just did a quick Google search to see when that was because I didn't remember for certain. It looks like it was late 2018 or early 2019. It lasted 35 days and cost about $5 billion, which, I mean, when you consider how many trillions of dollars we're in debt, isn't really much, but it's still
That's a drop in the
considerable.
bucket.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hopefully we can avoid it.
I mean, what do you guys say? I think we will. I mean, it's up to June 5th. We have, I mean, this, as we said, it's happened already a bunch of times. I don't see what's going to change here. I doubt we're going to default on our debt. I mean, it's going to be a gridlock again with the Republicans in the House. They have their own plan to avoid this, which, I mean, if they're willing to work with the Democrats, I mean, probably be avoided. I mean, there are times, of course, Republicans had way more people in the House and they're able to avoid it. So it's like, I don't see, if it comes close to summertime and we're still dealing with this, that's when I'll start being concerned about it. I'll be like, oh shit, what's actually going on? These people aren't doing anything. But until then, it's kind of another instance, I think, of more political gridlock.
As a Floridian, what do you think of Ron DeSantis and his, what do I want to call it? I guess the Florida state budget, because apparently he's done really well with that, and he's cutting taxes and everything else.
To be honest, I don't follow the financial state of much of anything super closely, so I'm probably not the best to comment on that. And my politics also are not always the most in line with Ron DeSantis. I generally describe myself, I think saying a Florida Democrat would be very accurate because no Democrat in Florida is really going to be that liberal because the state is so wacky conservative. A Florida Democrat is a very moderate Democrat. So in general, I describe myself as an independent, but as an independent, I guess I can be considered a Florida Democrat. So, yeah, in general, I don't really follow the state politics a whole lot, aside from what you see in the national headlines. So I really can't comment on Ron DeSantis and our financial state in Florida. But I do have no doubt that he is conservative. And I'm sure our financial standing is probably better than many other states. That would not surprise me at all.
Certainly a lot of other politicians out there would do well to take notes.
Yeah.
Very true. Patrick, were you surprised at all with the way Ron DeSantis kind of swept the state? Was it like, that's expected?
Not at all. No, I wasn't surprised. Because the thing is, like, Florida is a very big and diverse state. Here in Tampa, we are definitely a bit more left-leaning. But we're still not very left. Like our mayor here in Tampa is a Democrat, but even that, she used to be a registered Republican. So even our very blue cities are still pretty red to some extent. So I wasn't surprised at all. I mean, I guess I could say maybe I'm surprised he won by like 70% or whatever. I was a little surprised by the landslide it was, but I had no doubt he was going to beat Charlie Crist.
Huh. Makes sense, yeah. I mean, I saw that, and I was like, oh, yeah. And everything, I mean, I saw the other results. It's like really only Florida had that big red wave compared to the other states.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that does come down to the economy, the fact that whether you agreed with his politics or not, Ron DeSantis generally did handle Florida's economy way better than most other governors during the pandemic. You could also say he led to a lot more deaths as well, his politics, but in general, his politics did help the economy significantly more than most governors. So, again, not surprised at all.
There's this one deals with retirement. So this is in France right now, but I figure also probably will affect us as well. Hot button issue here is the retirement age. So up to 1.1 million people in France are protesting as President Emmanuel Macron wants to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. His idea behind that is to help push ahead proposed pension reforms. Of course, the unions are very upset by this because they think it threatens their workers' rights. So what do we think by this? I mean, you think Macron's right in raising the retirement age? I mean, the retirement age right now is pretty significantly high, in my opinion.
It's already bad enough at 65.
I know.
Imagine working somewhere 50 years. And you're like, yeah, I finally have enough money to live for the next 10 years, and then you die.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, think about it. You're expected to spend roughly a third of your time at work, and you get a third to sleep and a third to have time to yourself. So, like, you're expected to spend a third of your time at work, and then they want you to do that for 50 some odd years. Why? Like, you get done working, you retire, and it's like Matthew said, you're dead in 10 more years.
So what happens?
You're born. In what world is this acceptable?
So you're born.
Yeah.
Everyone is.
Right, yeah, we're born.
And
That's
then,
good.
like, maybe if you're lucky, first 3 years, you kind of get to be at home with your parents.
Yeah.
Just, like, chill and develop. Then, immediately, most of the time, you're sent into public school, K through 12, and you spend a good amount of your time in school. Then you get out, you're supposed to go to college for another 4 years.
Yeah.
So during all that time, like, yes, you're learning, Jared. I'm sure you can attest more to this.
Yeah.
But it's all just kind of grooming you to working 9 to 5 for the next 50 years. So you spend a good 18 years at least preparing for college for 4 years
Mm-hmm.
to go work somewhere for 40.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the first quarter of your life roughly is spent on tutorial mode on the training wheels, and then you spend the next half of it working for some company. And keep in mind, usually these companies expect you to be loyal to them for this whole time. Like you're not really expected to switch it up and find other career opportunities, with some exception there. And then you get maybe the last quarter, if you're lucky, of your life to just chill out. And France wants to make that even less now. It's ridiculous.
And that's like, I'm kind of listening to you guys. I mean, I know Matthew, I know you have some more Republican views, but you also sway. I mean, I always see like working kind of as a conservative issue. I see more conservatives wanting to raise that retirement age higher because they're more about, oh, we got to work, grind. And I mean, typically, usually the unions are more pro-Democrat compared to anything else. Of course, they're upset by this retirement age being raised. And of course, I always see like the common insult being, these are people who don't have jobs out protesting. I'm at my job, grinding and stuff like that. So it's like also kind of goes in with that grinding mindset.
It's not so much the grind that bothers me, nor is it working particularly, because hard work is always good.
Yeah.
It's good for you. It's good for your family. That's not what I'm debating here. What I'm trying to get at is the culture of work.
Mm-hmm.
So, Patrick, you might have some experience with this in HR, as you said. But let's say you get out of college, you find a great job, you work there like 5 years, you enjoy it, it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
But during one of those years, you're like, okay, I kind of need to reevaluate. I'm in a different place in my life. Maybe I have enough saved up that I just want to go travel for a year, go do something, and pivot a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. You can quit your job and go do that. But then as soon as you come back, you have a major hurdle trying to explain to new companies, oh, what's this gap in your resume? Why haven't you been working? What have you been doing? Where's your training? Where's your experience that you've gotten from this? And so it's like, even if you work hard enough to escape the rat race and have some time for yourself, it's not like you can just jump immediately back in.
Right.
Yeah. My background in Target or in human resources, again, it was a very entry level, so we weren't really too concerned about gaps, to be completely honest. But you are definitely correct. Again, I was just doing a quick Google search. It looks like the retirement age in France, this is all new to me since you just brought it up now. What's happening in France right now? It looks like the retirement age is being raised from 62 to 64, if no one mentioned that before. I don't know, again, this is all new to me, so I guess I don't have a very formed opinion, but you also kind of have to keep in mind that in general, life expectancy has been going up for the most part the past decades. So I guess it shouldn't be a huge surprise that countries would eventually start raising the retirement age. I'm not necessarily saying I support it, but I don't think it should come as a huge surprise.
It's a good point there. I mean, life expectancy is increasing. People are living longer.
Though I think something you need to be careful of. You need to be careful of not falling into the trap of assuming that if the line goes up, it's going to keep going up. Because things can change in a heartbeat.
Yes, trees do not grow to the sky.
And I mean, that's very true. I mean, even this past couple of weeks, I always see life very fragile. I mean, it's been kind of devastating stories here recently, just people, whether it's car accidents, sudden loss of life. It's like, can't take that for granted at all. But at the same time, this story kind of reminds me of that TikTok story we talked about last week with that gentleman who worked at Walmart. I think it was 86, I believe.
I think he was 82.
82, yeah.
Serves right.
Yeah, around 82 years old, and had to have help from another TikToker who was able to raise support for him to finally retire from Walmart. It's 82 years old again, working at Walmart, a veteran as well. I don't know, just raising the retirement age. I think we should let people enjoy their lives. Of course, Macron, from a business standpoint, he is definitely, they need workers, especially after COVID, trying to get people back into the workforce. So if you try to keep it the same, I mean, it's going to hit on the workforce, and it also affects the economy, which of course affects us as well. Last thing I want to touch on with the retirement age, it's actually not the first time Macron has proposed this before. He tried to raise it back in 2019, but when COVID hit, he decided to withdraw it. I mean, kind of figured that, because if he would do that during COVID, it probably would have been thrown out of office, to be honest. No way he would have gotten elected again.
Yeah, it would have backfired on him massively.
Yeah, say what you will about the French, but when they've had enough, they've had enough. And they'll let the government know, dude. They'll let the government know.
That's very true. Now, you guys think they'll do that here when they're going to raise our retirement age? Right now, it says our official retirement age in the U.S. is 67, and countries have been raising it as actually Patrick brought up, as populations grow older and fertility rates drop. So there is a birth decline to keep that in mind too.
Oh, we could do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, that's also going to be a whole episode on birth rates dropping, like what are the big causes of that. That's some of the main reasons why the government wants to raise retirement age. Life expectancy up, birth rates going down. So you think the U.S. will...
I wouldn't be too terribly surprised if the U.S. decides to raise it, only if the labor shortage issue becomes more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, as we're still kind of coming out of COVID, I think it's kind of easy to use that as an excuse for labor shortages in certain industries. But I think as COVID kind of goes away, whenever that is, if that's in a year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, I have no idea. But whenever COVID kind of becomes a little less prevalent of an excuse for labor shortages, I wouldn't be surprised if the U.S. begins considering raising our retirement age, even though it's already stupidly high as it is.
Right. We ready to work till 75, boys? Work until that grave?
Ain't no way.
Yeah!
Ain't no way.
Well, it depends on how well our Patreon sponsors help us out. We could probably do this till we're 75.
I remember back in my day, in 2022 when we started
But
this.
so,
We get to be boomers.
regarding the labor shortage, do you really think it's so much a labor shortage or more of like, I don't know. The way I view it is there's too many businesses. You know, when we have a free market system where anyone can go start a business, not every business is meant to survive. And if you have too many businesses, then of course you're not going to have enough workers. So do you think that might be the case, or is it really a case of people just don't feel like working?
I think it's a mix. I think people are sick of being treated a certain way, especially in the corporate culture.
Mm-hmm.
And as a collective, they've just said, we're done with this and we refuse to work in these conditions. And, you know, for a long time, the employees kind of had the advantage, but now it's shifting back to the employer once again. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic and how it develops here in the next year or so, especially as the economy kind of downturns and people have to start fighting for decent jobs.
Yeah, I completely agree there.
Something else, it's also interesting to see the change in the labor force as you have a lot of the baby boomers retiring. And so all those, 50, 60, 70-year-old upper managers and CEOs start to vacate their positions, and you start getting millennials and Gen X moving into entry-level and middle management.
Mm-hmm.
So, Patrick, you might be able to talk about this a little bit more, depending on work. But have you noticed a difference between, like, some of your older bosses versus if you have someone kind of your age group?
Can you be a little more specific? Because I actually have two bosses, one of whom is only about 10 years older than me, and then one of whom is about 40 years older than me. So I guess, can you be a little more specific?
Just in, like, work ethic and how they treat their employees, kind of their expectations.
I think a lot of it depends on the individual.
True.
And company culture is also a very big and significant thing as well. In commercial real estate, property management in general, People are willing to bust their butts, and you're not going to last in the industry if you're not willing to bust your butt. So all three of us in our office work pretty equally hard. Not necessarily long hours per se, but very difficult, no seconds to spare hours every day. So I think it's more of a cultural thing and kind of how you're raised. I'm not really a huge believer in the generational gap personally. Do I fault boomers for some things? Sure, but I do it more jokingly than anything else.
We all blame the boomers. The boomers blame us, so it's funny. Yeah, I mean, and Matt, going back to what you said, I mean, a lot of people, I think COVID was kind of that breaking point. A lot of people just wanted to leave their shitty jobs. They're being treated, especially retail, fast food.
Kinder care.
Kinder care, daycares. A horrible work experience there. I mean, they wanted to leave those big, corporations. I worked at Kroger also during the pandemic as well. I mean, I enjoyed my time at Kroger. I was a really great manager. Job was on and off. I had good days, had bad days. Kind of expect that from retail. Ashton, I know you work retail as well.
Yeah, at Lowe's.
Well,
I've had pretty much similar experience. I've had good days and I've had bad days there.
Yeah. It's like, it wasn't enough to make me want to quit on the spot. It all really does depend on who you're working for, their culture, as you said, Patrick, and everything like that. But I feel like there's definitely been a lot of instances where you have big corporations taking advantage of their workers, abusing them.
Amazon being a textbook example.
Yes, exactly. Amazon. My time at KinderCare was absolutely horrible, just based on what we had to do for rather little pay, cleaning up the whole classroom, which that could be its whole thing. Do a whole thing about education, but very miserable.
Can I interject on something real quick about Amazon because we brought it up?
Go ahead.
So as I was scrolling through the news this evening, I happened upon a headline that made me really sad about Amazon. It says Amazon is discontinuing its Amazon Smile charity program, which if you're not familiar with, if you go to smile.amazon.com, if you make really not any purchase on Amazon's site, but most purchases on Amazon's site that's done through smile.amazon.com, you can actually pick from a handful of charities where 1% of your purchase or something goes to that charity. They have a couple hundred different charities you can choose from. So I didn't use it a whole lot because I do most of my Amazon shopping through the mobile app, not really through the website. But there were some times where I did go out of my way to use the charity site so that different organizations could get donations, and they're going to be discontinuing that soon to save money.
Really?
Bruh.
That they need to save money. Okay.
Save money.
Well,
Thanks,
maybe they
Bezos.
should just have 6 months worth of savings built up, Maybe they should stop getting their iced coffee and avocado toast in the morning.
Fucking Mr. Krabs over
They
here.
should.
Yeah. Sheesh.
I bet. Ashton, remember that SpongeBob episode where he tried to sell SpongeBob's soul for 75 cents?
62 cents.
62 cents.
There's also that one episode where Mr. Krabs basically charged Squidward and SpongeBob for
Oh, yeah. For standing, breathing,
lollygagging.
lollygagging. That's Jeff Bezos right there.
Pretty much.
Honestly, probably every big company owner at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, Ashton, I know you had something you want to talk about, so why don't you go ahead, introduce it, explain what's going on.
Right. So this one's actually kind of a bit of a niche subject, but it also is something that kind of boggles the mind as to why this stuff even happens in the first place. But there is a free-to-play game out there called War Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
I used to play it a lot back in the day. Jared, I know, played a little bit of it, and his brother Ian also played some of it. But in recent years, there's actually been, I guess you could say, kind of a scandal / controversy where some people on the forums would leak restricted or even classified information regarding some of the top-tier vehicles that are featured in that game. The motivation seemingly just to make them perform a lot better, since a lot of them tended to suffer in the game's meta. The most recent episode actually happened about 3 days ago, where someone leaked restricted information regarding the F-16 Fighting Falcon, fighter jet onto the War Thunder forums.
And that gives you, so leaking that gives you a significant advantage.
Well, basically, I suppose, in many ways, the problem, it's kind of a multifaceted issue with the game in that I haven't played War Thunder in quite a while mainly because of the poor economy in that game, especially at the higher tiers. But I know there's a lot of problems facing the top tier current sort of thing in that game. And perhaps the biggest one is that Russia tends to dominate in that game, even though it really shouldn't get based on recent events.
Yeah, true.
But essentially, it seems that the Russians basically have the top meta lineup in that game, for lack of a better words. And most other nations tend to struggle, basically, to stay relevant.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first instance of someone leaking classified information, basically to try and, I guess, rectify that situation, was with the British Challenger main battle tank. It happened a second time with the French Leclerc main battle tank.
Mm-hmm.
A third time happened when basically someone leaked some information regarding Chinese armor-piercing ammunition that was used on their latest tanks. And now it's happened again with the F-16.
Who's the company that owns this game?
Gaijin Entertainment. They were initially kind of founded and based in Russia, but I think they moved over to Hungary a few years ago. But they've kind of had their own sort of I think they had their own sort of scandal where someone may have, I think someone made some sort of connection between them and the DNR LPR forces in the Donbass in Ukraine. So basically the pro-Russian puppets fighting against Ukraine before the whole escalation in February 2022.
So it's basically a Russian-supported company for the most part.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but it definitely seems that they definitely lean more towards the Russian side of it.
Okay. Are they doing anything to deal with the leaks?
Well, supposedly, whenever their policy on these forums is that whenever someone leaks sort of restricted or classified information, it gets taken down pretty much right away.
Yeah. But once you upload something to the internet, it kind of stays there forever, even if it does get taken down.
Yes.
So I assume it gets shared elsewhere too.
Yeah, it's kind of pitiful in ways because both on Gaijin's part, if they can't balance their game properly, and both on the guys who stoop so low as to leak these kinds of basically military secrets out into the open market.
Well, it's a video game about essential military secrets because it's relevant to modern vehicles. So it's
yeah, I still remember when the furthest War Thunder ever went was basically late World War II, early Cold War era.
Mm-hmm.
And now they basically have some of the latest and greatest vehicles on air and land that we recognize today.
Huh. Wouldn't that be considered a crime to leak information like that?
It would be, yes.
Interesting. So hopefully they're doing, this happened, they said they take it down. They done anything else about it?
Not from what I've seen. Nothing pretty much else from basically telling them to shut up and taking it down.
Telling them to shut up.
It's more or less, essentially. Just not in those words.
Again, we apologize for our audio last week. It was a great episode, but it is hard to hear. And so, Patrick, I know you expressed some interest in revisiting Biden's classified documents.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up, Matthew. So I'm sure you already discussed much of this last week, but as you mentioned, with audio being a little difficult to hear, it is definitely a very interesting topic. Obviously, a lot of people are naturally making comparisons between Biden's situation and Trump's, because, it is a rare and unique situation for presidents and ex-presidents to be found with classified documents in their homes, especially in their garages right next to their Corvettes. At least it was a secured garage. it's just such a unique and quirky situation. So I just want to revisit it for a little bit, not spend much time, just kind of get people's thoughts. And yeah.
Well, here's the thing, right? Having classified documents in an unsecure, non-governmental setting is a violation of the law. Plain as day, right? Now, it doesn't matter if Donald Trump said that his was locked up in a room in his house, or if Biden said it was in a locked garage next to his Corvette. Either you enforce the law at this level by saying classified documents were found in an improper manner, that is a clear violation of the law, and something happens, or you chalk it up to, well, that might just be part of being a president or vice president. It's one or the other, and there should be no preferential treatment for either of them. Because if any of us got caught with a classified document, it'd be game over. There would be no, oh, well, it was in a locked garage next to my Acura, or, nothing like that. That wouldn't fly whatsoever.
I agree. Just because they're the ones enforcing the laws does not mean that they're above the laws that they make. And disregarding the legality of it, leaving state secrets pretty much out in the open, kind of like this, is basically asking for trouble, no matter how you spin it.
Can we stop electing people above the age of 75?
Yeah.
The dude
Yes,
probably
please.
forgot. I know.
Yeah.
It's like the dude probably just forgot about the documents, to be honest. He's like, the documents down there? My bad.
There's also a lot of question of whether
Oh, yes.
Joe Biden himself put the documents there or if his aides did. Because there's a good chance Biden himself probably did not put the documents there during the fury, the hurry and the rush of the transition of power from the Obama administration to the Trump administration. So, I mean, there's a good chance that Biden himself may not have put the documents there, but in the end, it is still his garage. I mean, I don't know how big his garage is. I don't know how many shelves he has in his garage. So maybe it's a big garage with a lot of shelves and a lot of places to hide things. But it's just an odd situation. One thing I do want to give props to Mayor Garland for who we appointed to the special counsel to oversee this. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but it sounds like he was a Trump-appointed justice, which I think goes to show how seriously Garland is taking it and getting hopefully as nonpartisan as possible and trying to get as objective of opinions and observations and facts as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his name's Robert Hur.
Thank you.
Yep. And actually, this just happened about an hour or so ago. Biden said he has no regrets about the way the documents or how the documents were handled. He's been following what the lawyers have told me what to do. And basically, he said he's been transparent about it. He's been cooperating with the officials. That's, I guess, one difference comparison to Trump, where he wasn't as cooperative with authorities. And there were fewer sensitive documents found in comparison to Trump.
Oh, well, that just makes it fine and dandy. Oh, there were less classified documents. Great. All right, have a nice day. We don't have to worry about this, Mr. President.
And we didn't have to raid his home.
Yeah, it's like, dude, there's more classified documents than ice cream flavors.
That's good.
I mean, there were, 30 different classified documents found? It's like, I don't care what Baskin-Robbins you go into. 31 is, pretty close. So I think it's a fair comparison.
So here's kind of a philosophical / ethical question. Should the government be keeping secrets from us? I mean, I understand hiding things from, enemy nations and just foreign nations in general, but from us, what should they be doing that?
Didn't Edward Snowden say something about this recently? Jared, if you want to pull that up. Jamie, pull that video up.
Yep. And one more thing I will add as I pull Edward Snowden up. He actually said earlier, because this is supposed to be an interview about climate and climate change, extreme weather in California. He was like, quite frankly, what bugs me is that we have a serious problem here about climate change in California and extreme weather that we're talking about, and the American people don't quite understand why you don't ask me questions about that. Because the reporter kept asking him questions about the documents instead of what was happening in California. So you got a little snippy there. I thought that was kind of interesting. Actually, Edward Snowden saying that Biden having classified files isn't a real scandal. So let's see what Edward Snowden believes. So he believes that Joe Biden possessing classified documents isn't a real scandal. Instead, he accused the Department of Justice for suppressing information during the midterm elections.
I kind of agree with him, honestly. The government's supposed to be run by us, for us, so they shouldn't really be hiding anything from us, in my opinion.
Right. So he also was critical. Donald Trump, of course, slammed the FBI. One little nitpick. I hate when the media uses slammed all the time. You guys notice that? Like every single article I read, the word slams in there. It's like, it's so annoying.
Yeah, everything is sensationalized.
It's like slammed.
Which is one of the main reasons why we started this podcast. It makes it a lot easier to discuss news without all the buzzwords and highly opinionated topics. Like, we definitely have our opinions, but we make that quite clear. And we invite anyone on to kind of debate it. I think we're doing a pretty good job so far, just hearing everyone out.
So he's critical of the DOJ finding out a week prior to midterm elections and choosing to suppress the story, which gave a partisan advantage. That's what he's upset about, not that Biden had classified documents. So he's making the argument that the DOJ is benefiting the Democrats here.
Well, why can't we have both? Why can't we be upset with Biden and Trump having classified documents and the DOJ suppressing it? Like, why do we have to pick what we're mad at? Why can't we be like, hey, there are all issues here, and all of them need to be addressed?
Because I think it's easy. In some people's minds, it'll be easier if they just have one opinion that they can squash.
Well, it's like having one brain cell bouncing around like a DVD screensaver. It's like when it hits the corner, oh, okay, that's what I'll think.
But it's absolutely correct what you said, Ashton. A lot of people today in America and even other places, they don't want to have to think for themselves. It's easier to just have one opinion, be confident that yours is the right opinion, and that's it. You don't have to think any further about it. You don't have to make your own determinations about anything. Just eat up what you're spoon-fed from your particular political party, and that's all the research you've got to do.
There is no more in Boston, you say.
We're free. Ooh, so
I think they really should make critical thinking a required skill to learn in classes these days.
For real.
We try to, at least in social studies. I mean, we always point out bias in the media. I mean, of course, we don't get enough time with that because we have to stick to the curriculum. But we always
funny
try
how
to
that works.
Yeah, we always try to interject, especially social studies wise, identifying and trying to think critically for yourself, especially about past events. But here's a big question. Might get us arrested here. But is the FBI corrupt? Because, of course, Trump has been upset, asking Congress to launch an investigation into the FBI.
Is it even a question?
I think the obvious answer is
yeah.
more than likely.
More than likely. If any of us die of suddenly anytime soon, you know why.
That's the highest prize in journalism, is it not?
What country should we run to?
Somewhere cold.
Switzerland. They'll never find you in the bunkers in Switzerland.
There we go. Switzerland sounds good to me.
Bring your jackets. It's going to be cold.
That's very true. Well,
Yeah, I think most, if not all, of the alphabet agencies either are battling or have battled corruption on a fairly decent scale.
Well,
Putting it lightly.
I don't think they're battling the corruption. I think
They are
it's just
corrupt.
there. Like, just don't battle against it. It's just how it is.
Let me be slightly optimistic, Cameron. Let me preserve just a little bit of American hope here,
No, they're all corrupt. Straight up.
unfortunately.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah, like the, why am I blanking on the name? The ATF, they just banned braces for AR pistols. So a brace, for anyone who isn't familiar, is the stock of a weapon that is manufactured in such a way that it has a Velcro strap that attaches to your forearm and is meant to be fired away from your shoulder. Now, the ATF has some really peculiar rules and gun laws. So if you had said weapon and you have a vertical foregrip on it, that's felony. If you have a 45, you're fine. If you have a brace on it connected to your forearm, perfectly fine. You shoulder it, felony. And this is just one example, but they've completely blown this out of proportion, and they've effectively said in, I think, 120 days, if you own a brace, you are a felon. And it's, why can they just make these decrees like a king and just be like, oh yeah, we decided that like this one particular gun, if you own it, it's a felony. If you own this part, it's a felony. If you use two of these things, it's a felony. But if you use one in a slightly modified version, it's perfectly fine. And yet when people write to them, and this is one of the reasons why the NRA is so popular, is because you try and get clarification on these rulings, and the ATF just looks at your letter and it's like, oh, we're not going to clarify shit. Have a good day. And it's left intentionally vague.
It's what they do. It's what they do. Keep it vague as possible so people have to interpret the best they can.
I think interpretation sucks.
But I mean, if they can't even interpret, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed, what makes you think they can interpret anything else properly?
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't need to be interpreted. It says what it means, and it means what it says. What's so hard about this?
One would think.
I'm going to stop you guys before we get into a whole gun debate. We can do that another time.
We already have.
Yeah, we kind of done that too. Patrick, anything else you wanted to say?
I don't believe so. I appreciate you having me on. I'm sure there will always be plenty of topics to discuss every week.
Yeah, especially now. This feels like we live in bizarro world, so it's at least giving us a lot of content. So
yeah. One thing I did want to mention, this is not really about politics, but I don't know if you saw in the headlines today regarding Alec Baldwin.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like he's being charged for involuntary manslaughter.
2 counts.
From the Rush shooting, which is unfortunate, but I don't know. It's a very tricky situation because, not only was he an actor, but he was also either a producer or the producer. I don't know for certain of the movie. And as a producer, you definitely hold a bit more liability versus just as a normal actor.
Well, here's the thing.
And he is the one who fired the gun, but it's such a tricky situation. Yeah.
No matter what, any time someone hands you a firearm, whether it's real, prop, fake, whatever you do, there are gun safety rules that should be applied every single time you touch a firearm. And those are non-negotiable. Everyone knows firearm safety. And the fact that he didn't check the weapon, he didn't clear it, he didn't know what was in the chamber is completely and 100% unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Ignorance is no excuse of the law. Not knowing anything about guns or what bullets look like, that's not an excuse. If someone is handing you a weapon, you should be familiar with it because it has the potential to cause harm. Now, obviously, I wouldn't want anyone to be shot or be maimed or harmed in this instance. But part of the reason to prevent that is going through and having these safety briefings and getting familiar with what you just got handed. So for me, it's like inexcusable behavior on the part of Alec Baldwin, and I'm very glad that he ended up getting charged.
I agree. I mean, it's a crappy situation all around, but I mean, exactly as you said, Matthew, it's you're given a firearm, even if it's a prop, you're expected to treat it the same way that you would treat a regular firearm. Of course, and he didn't, whether or not he's pleading ignorance, they didn't know how to handle it, or, I mean, most likely he was probably taught how to handle it. So, sorry.
Well, then it's just negligent
then
in
it's
either way.
So we'll see what's going to happen going forward with this. But
even if he wasn't taught how to handle it, as a producer, he should have been one of the people making sure that people knew how to handle them. So
Precisely.
Again, I really don't want to put the blame on him, but it's one of those things where like it all kind of falls back on him, either as an actor because he had negligence as an actor, or as a producer because he did not properly train his actors. It's really unfortunate.
Right.
He didn't do his due diligence as a human
Either
interacting
way.
with others.
Either way.
Because I remember, Jared, when we went to the shooting range, do you want to kind of describe what all you had to go to in order to even access the bench and start?
Yeah, right. You have to go watch safety training videos. I mean, all the rules of the range, what you can and cannot do. Of course, always have to have protection. There's obviously always people around watching, monitors. They have a ceasefire period where absolutely all weapons have to be unloaded, put down, and everyone, of course, has to be aware of when those times are. They shout it very loud. Everyone's made aware on the range, so there's no accidents at all. So, I mean, it's very strict but straightforward. Here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. I assume he most likely should have trained his actors in this case as well. If he didn't, he deserves those charges.
Yeah, it's not simple. You can't just walk in somewhere new and be like, I just got a new gun, I'm going to go try this thing out.
Right.
And like,
exactly.
walk over and start shooting crazy down range. It's a very methodical and safe environment where you have to go through, you have to watch the video, you have to get specific training on it. People watch you. You have others making sure that you're doing all these things properly. It's not the Wild West, and anytime you're handling a firearm or anything dangerous, you should be informed on how it works and
Right.
just the operation of it.
Exactly. You need that training protocol. Absolutely important.
What if it was the Wild West, though? That'd be kind of cool, right? It'd be a little cool.
Shoot, I know you want that camera. That's your dream right there.
I mean, yeah, private ranges are fun. You
Yeah.
can just go out there and have a heyday. But whenever you're on a private range, it's usually with people who are experienced enough that you feel comfortable around.
Buy some land in the country and you'll have some private range. Yeah, well, I think that'll about wrap everything up for tonight. Well, thank you, Patrick, very much for coming on. We really appreciate having you. Your
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Second guest star in working audio this time, so
Yay.